Okay, welcome back as we start this week's video assignment demonstration. So as we start, and as I mentioned in the preview, what we want to do is make sure that we have all of our support information available. That would include the floor plans at 1/4 inch, the ground floor, and this time the second floor, as well as the section drawing and interior elevation drawings. We don't need the exterior information at this point because that's already been collected in this last reference piece, which is the work we did last week. As before, everything is building. We use previous work to build this work, and that's how designers do their designs, is that they work off previous information that they're developing on that design to keep everything consistent. So again, we're going to use this information, and we're going to be translating all this shell information onto the new drawing, and which will be a cutaway section this week. So basically we're going to remove the roof, we're going to remove the front, and we're going to look inside this drawing. Now I have an example drawing here that I did, and this isn't the exact same thing. This is actually a deviation of it, but I want you to see just how much detail and how much information we can get about the outside of the building and the inside of the building at the same time. So this is really a very helpful tool for designers. So with that, we'll come back to some of that information in a little bit. So as we start, it's important to understand that our activities this week, just like last week, will be to create a rough drawing and then to work out all our issues, all our determinations in terms of design and graphics and all that stuff on a rough out and a block out before we do the final. And that final, we'll talk about that at the end. So as we've done, please make sure that you have all your materials, all your stations set up, and we'll start this demonstration with a reminder of some of the rules that we have for these drawings. So first thing that we need to identify is that we're working with the correct view. Now in this particular case, it's not that difficult because we are going to be using the view that was established by this exterior axonometric, and we're going to remove some parts so we can see inside. But we want the relationship to be very direct. So we're going to be using this information as mentioned very directly. So as we do that, we're going to still be applying the same rules that we talked about previously. And that means we're going to set our sheet at a 45-degree angle. Now I've already put, well, I'm going to take this off. There it is. This is the same plan and the same orientation we used last week, and so this will be helpful for us as we move forward. Let's see if I can get my screen to capture that just a bit better. Okay, that's a little better. All right, so as a result, this drawing is taped down at a 45-degree angle. We can test it with our triangle, and we know that it's square to the 45 with our parallel and with our, and if you're using a t-square, it'd be the same thing. All right, so we've done that. Then we're going to recognize that when we put these on 45s, all of the horizontal lines, which are represented here, that are square to each other or perpendicular or parallel with each other, will always go at this 45-degree angle. So either they're going this way or they're going this way, but they're always going to be at that 45. Is that always true? Depends on your design. If you end up with some oblique walls, then it gets a little bit interesting to create those, but we're going to talk about that in some future lecture, not in this one and not this assignment. So as a result, our rules are that we've set it at a 45. All the horizontals are going to be at 45. All verticals are going to stay vertical. That means every corner straight up. So we will be projecting vertically with our triangle, just like we did last week. So every time we come to a corner, every time we come to an edge, all those vertical treatments will go vertical. And so we don't have to worry about any changing of that. Now, any sloped elements will have to be plotted or mapped, just like last week. So those are found by locating a known measurement and then actually a couple known features, and we're going to then plot or shoot a straight line between those to get the correct slope, just like last week. So we're going to be setting that up again as we work through the assignment requirements here. Then, as always in these drawings, we have to pay particular attention to thickness. The wall thickness, the offsets that are required for doors, for windows, all those features, just like last week, are applicable here. Now, as we cut away things, we're going to want to pay particular attention to the thickness of the wall that remains. So remember, if you go home and look at your doors, they're not thin, they have a thickness. So we need to represent those because that's how we get accuracy in these drawings. Then, as another note, as we did last week, we started with a general form and we built that form, and then we took things away or we added things onto it. So we're going to try that same method again here today. And we will be starting by simply applying this drawing to the existing and then tracing a new building outline on it. So as we get ready to start, it's important to make sure that your plan is set at 45 degrees, just like last week. And then we want to take the last assignment that we did, and we want to line it up. Now remember, we're going to line up the corner of the building, which is here. This is the ground floor. We want the finished floor point to line up with that element right there. So we'll bring that down to here like this, and we line it up with our triangle to make sure it's square. We want to make sure that the drawing is as accurate as possible. I'll lift it up just a bit. And yeah, okay. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and tape it down. We only need a couple places to tape it because it won't be on the drawing that long. We will be removing it shortly. We need it to speed up the process of getting the shell information. Again, this is a cutaway. So we're going to have the general form of the building and we're going to remove some pieces. So the general form of the building is still valid. And so we're going to go ahead and tape a new vellum right on top of the other one. And I think I'll put a couple pieces of tape up here. And we'll square it up in just a sec. Okay, so that's there. And we come alongside the sheet and close. I'm going to slide it just a bit. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to put a couple pieces down here. Now, the thing that you need to remember when we're doing these is that the drawing underneath is what we're going for. I mean, is a reference. The sheet on top is what we're going to be drawing. So let's start by just outlining the form of the building in a quick set of perimeter lines. So I'm going to do that real quick here. Okay. And I'm not worried about the stair. Remember, this facade is coming off. So is the roof. But the chimney will remain. That's an important piece because it references to other parts of the drawing. So, as I do that, I'm just going to go ahead and connect these parts up to get the general form. And I'm going to go ahead and throw the roof pitch in. It won't be important at the front, but it is important at the back. So we'll go ahead and put that line in there. And then we'll bring this line in here. And we'll complete that. Okay, so what I have is the general form of the building. Now, I'm not going to take a whole bunch of time to retrace this and talk about it. I don't think that's fruitful. I'm going to go ahead and leave for a minute, complete this part of the drawing, come back in, and you can see what's left and what you need to draw. That way we can be more expedient and more time efficient with this video. So I'll be back in just a minute with the completed tracing, and then we can go from there. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. I knew we had a short break there, but I wanted to draw up the outside of this building, and it just took a minute or so, but I wanted to go through what is left over on the shell. Now, I did not draw all the detail in the rough out of the solarium. You will want to do that on the final drawing. Same thing for the window. I got it basically placed there. I just traced it from below. But when I took the roof off, I did not I took it off, but I wanted to indicate here that you see two lines, and that represents the wall thickness for this wall, and the back wall. I've taken the front wall off altogether. Now, the other thing is that there is a thickness indicated here, and so all these elements that are represented with thicknesses need to be provided such that you get your offsets and your placement correct. Otherwise, your floor plan will not work down below. So you need to make sure that you apply the 6 inches for wall thicknesses on the outside, the 12 inches for floor thickness down below. And then I placed it again on the ground line. So I added that 3 feet down from the finished floor. And so I'm going to write FF here in this corner so I remember which one that is. So if we trace that wall, that floor edge, it goes all the way around, and it's not the outside line now, it's the inside line. So we take it from the inside corner here, and we project it all the way up at a 45 till it comes to the vertical line here, or the very corner of the plan down below. You should be able to see it. Same thing from this side. We come in at a 6-inch thickness wall. We extend it in. We're not looking at the outside wall, although I have it drawn. We want to pay our attention to the inside wall. Now I've drawn that light because this side of the drawing, we're not going to see so much. But on this side, we're going to see a lot just because of the view orientation. So that's how this drawing got set up. That's why you'll see some edges here. Now I want you to also understand that that's going to create kind of a funny little corner here and a funny little corner here. So you might want to look at that a little bit more closely. But this is horizontal coming in, and this is on a slope coming down. And that creates this little corner section right here. Same thing, it's abstracted or distorted a little bit because of the view angle, but it is the remnant of having a slope come down and meet a horizontal, and you're going to end up with that little funny edge there. So be aware of that. Okay, so let's move on here. I think it's important to understand that what you saw in the shell included, all those elements. I'm going to go ahead and throw the chimney in. The chimney is legit. I'm not going to take it all the way down to the floor yet because I don't know really where that's occurring yet, and it's not essential in completing this. In just a moment, we're going to remove the base plan or the base drawing, which is the exterior plan oblique that we did last week. And so I'm just going to quickly draw this in so that we can get that done, and we don't have to worry about that later. And so that will complete this portion of the drawing. Okay. And again, I don't need all the detail. I just need its general placement. If I want to come back in and finish off the opening in the center, I can do that. But I've got the cap, I've got the chimney. I think I'm looking pretty good. So as we move forward, again, no roof, no front, just remnant walls and their thicknesses. So what we want to do is we want to start exploring what's left over, this large empty space in the middle. Well, that's where the floor plan comes in, and it becomes very important to now start looking at the floor plan as opposed to the exterior of the building. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave the drawing in. If I do this right, I don't have to lift off my base drawing. So take the base drawing off, or the exterior axonometric, and there we go, and it comes off. And we can set that over here. We won't need that for a while. So I'm going to tape this back down, and it does line up nicely with the floor plan down below. So we're going to keep that reference all in play. Okay, so here's our corners. You can see the inside walls, and everything should be set to go. Now, what we want to start thinking about here is we want to start thinking about the primary view areas. There's some areas we're just not going to see very much of. If we think about it, and if you look at the reference drawing, you can kind of get a clue for it, that because of the view angle, we're just not going to see so much inside that washroom, that bathroom. And we're only going to see a little bit inside the kitchen. But what we are going to see is the loft, because that's closest to the view orientation that we're in. So we're going to be able to use the floor plan and the sections and elevations to help us find that. Now, I'm not going to use this drawing because I have the other drawing already in place. I may need this second floor, so we'll keep that around. And of course, I'm going to need the section and the interior elevation, as we've talked about. So how do we start this? We've got the shell put in. We can finish putting all the other detail on a little bit later. But let's start with thinking about what we're seeing in this view. The first thing I'm noticing is this area right here of the plan. So we can draw that very quickly and use that information by simply tracing the floor plan lightly, because we're going to be erasing some of this stuff. And if you remember from our plan view, this corner is over the post. So that means that post is a very important point. And we're going to extend our line for our second floor. We know everything's going to grow from there. So we're finding it on the ground floor and projecting it vertically with the plan and section information. So what we need right now, we'll come back to the interior elevation. We need to know how high these elements are. We've located this element of wall, which is this piece right here. We've located that on the plan, and there it is. And so it's kind of oriented like that. You don't want to go there. But as we do that, that section of wall becomes important, that post becomes important, and where it connects in to the wall overhead becomes important. So let's place those in. So as we've done before, we're coming across here. We'll come back to the cabinetry a bit later. We don't have anything here, but that dashed line is indicating where that overhang is, or that overhead condition. There's our first point right there at the edge of that wall. There's our first edge. We have a corner here. We have a corner at the post and at the outer side of the post. So I'm going to project up, and we'll figure out how far in just a minute, each one of those edges. Okay, so I've got the object turned this way. So how high is the opening? So as I understand it, if I scale this, and I can go back to the handouts that we used when we generated this, that would also be a decent reference. But I'm just going to use the drawings because that's how we tend to do it in the practice. So we're saying that the ceiling height in the kitchen is 8 foot. So I'm going to mark from the corner here where this edge is right here. We're going to mark that at 8 foot. So vertically, measure and mark 8 foot. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and shoot a line up there so I kind of get a sense for where it is. And there it is. Now, that is the opening size. How far does the opening go? Well, if we look this way, we can see the opening goes from the edge outside wall to the edge of the, I'll call it screen wall at the kitchen. So I can push that line across here, and it stops there. Okay, so there's our opening for our kitchen. Now we have this wall section here, that's there, and what we observe then is that the ceiling line in the hallway out just beyond that screen wall is also 8 foot. So I can connect the ceiling line that is provided in the kitchen as being the same height as the ceiling height in that hallway. And that's just a simple extension of that line to the column or to the point or to the post. So I put that in. So now I'm starting to get, I have the bottom part of this T shape. I've got this edge and this edge right here. Now I want to get the top part of it. Well, how tall is that wall? So if we measure from the ceiling, I can add in for the floor height if I want, but I'm just going to measure from the ceiling opening up to keep things simple. It appears to be 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot, and 6 inches. So I'm going to measure 4 foot 6 inches from this point here. It's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. Goes to there. Okay, so, and as we look, we notice that there's just a little space left over here before the roof slope starts. And indeed, that's where our wall ended. So that's good. How far does this wall extend? Well, it goes over to just above the post, as we can see here. Again, from the outer wall to just over the post. So both those should be referred to. And I'm going to go ahead and project my line up to create that wall, that loft wall kind of overhang, or that low wall where that's occurring. Okay, so this T shape is now kind of on an angle. And there it is. It kind of comes up and goes that way. So I'm going to make that a little bit easier to see. Okay, so what we have so far is the kitchen opening, the hallway opening, the post, and the wall that goes between. So let's go ahead and clean this up just a bit. Now, remember, the wall has thickness. So how thick is an interior wall? 4 inches. So I'm going to come over here to that wall thickness and measure it at a 45 again. Now, you have to be a little bit thoughtful because, again, those distortions of wall thicknesses can come into play, and we want to be thoughtful of those with our drawings. Again, it should appear thinner than the exterior wall because it is. So, now, so we hit this point and then the wall goes back. We hit this point and the wall recedes beyond. So that's going to be on a 45 going this way. So I come to the corner where the post is up above, and then I turn it and I extend it. I don't know where it goes yet, but that's what I've got. So I've got my element here. Here's the kitchen opening. Here's I'll call it the screen wall. Here's the ceiling or the hallway. Now I can turn the hallway and extend it this way as well. Because if you look down below, you can see there's another post here and a post here. And that dashed line means that that wall extends on beyond. So I'm going to find that post and I'm going to mark it and draw it. So I marked it. I just made a note that that was that. Can we align it? And then we extend it up. How far? We'll see that in just a minute. Okay. So here's where we're at. We've gotten this far so far. I think the main thing that I hope that you're pulling from this is that we're using the floor plan, we're finding the elements, and we're projecting them up, and we're referring to these other drawings for their height. So it is, again, kind of a similar exercise that we did last week where we were using the exterior elevations and section to help us find stuff. So now I'm going to extend this ceiling to go the other way. So I've given myself a little guideline there to line up this edge, hits the corner, turns, and extends back. So I've given myself a guideline to work with there, and it stops on that side. So I'll go ahead and know where this thing ends. It ends right there, and the wall behind it, or the edge behind it, goes just a bit further. Now, how far does it go? We still have, we can use the second floor plan and lay it out, but one of the things I wanted you to see is that with the exception of this corner change here, most of these posts disappear within the wall thickness of the overhead wall. So even though the example shows these lines there, those are not correct, as I mentioned. So follow this. The line of the post goes up and becomes flush inside the wall of the parapet guardrail wall. Okay? All right. So far, we've got this wall here. We have the post that goes, but one of the things that you may be needing to see is that this wall is turning and going this way underneath. So not only does it create a screen across here, but it is actually turning and running this way. And there's an opening here and an opening at the door. So we should extend that wall so that we get that included. That's all within the view angle or view orientation of the drawing that we're doing. Okay, so I want to be a little careful back there. We'll come back to that in a minute. I'm trying not to monkey up the drawing too bad. Okay, so what I've done is I've turned the corner and gone this way. That means that when I turn that corner, all those vertical edges start to show up again. So we've got a corner, we've got an edge, we got a cabinet edge. I'll come back to that in a little bit. We got a door opening edge, and then another door opening edge. So at the door opening edge, I'm just going to extend it up just as far as the underside view here. Normally I would take that up to 6'8", like all those doors, but this part of the view is covering it, so there's no need to do that. So that's why we wanted to get that boundary in ahead, so we didn't draw all that stuff up and then just cover it up. So now that we know kind of where that outer wall is and where that second floor boundary is, then now we can complete the work down below underneath the walls. So I'm just going to extend those up to the underside of the ceiling. And there is some thickness stuff we're going to have to return to and look at. So far that's pretty good. Now, the only thing I'm going to add back in is some door thickness, and I'm not going to show the door closed. Actually, I'm going to leave the door open. And there is a little bit of a offset that you can do here to make that look a little bit more realistic. Then this corner, even though it goes this way, is going to be largely covered by that cabinet. So we extend the wall up there, and we know we're going to be putting in a cabinet there. We'll come back to that in just a bit. And same as for this side. Okay, so far so good. Now, theoretically, we should probably put this window in. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. Let's measure how high. The window seems to be just in from the edge of the wall, and we know that its head height is 6'8", so we're going to mark that. 6'8" goes to there. I'm going to project that line up kind of light. And we're going to come back across. Okay, so there's the box. Now we know that the sill height is 3 feet. So we're going to come up from the bottom 3 feet to create a sill. And there's our window. I'll go ahead and erase some of these lines, not necessary. Okay, now as before, it's probably good to give ourselves some interior trim, which is usually about 2 inches. You usually don't need as big a trim on the inside as you do on the outside. So I'm just going to eyeball that in for now. Okay. Okay, so then what I want to do is I want to add in just a little bit of an offset for where the glass is, where the window finishes. So there we come over there. We'll come over there. All right, so done with the window. So the window's in place. We've got the walls that surround the loft and create the overhead conditions at the kitchen. We found the hallway. We know that where the opening is to the kitchen from that side. We know where the opening is from the bathroom. So we're looking pretty good. At this point, I'm going to add one more piece, and then we're going to step away for some detail work when we come back. So for right now, we've got the walls, but we probably need to know where the floor is up here. It's not where it's not been referenced yet. So one of the things that we know is that our ceiling height at this point right here is 8 foot. And what we said and is represented in our section is that we have 12 inches of floor thickness, and that 12 inches, it can be measured up, and that's going to give me the top of the second floor, or the loft, top of its height, or top of its floor level. So as I mark that, that's on the outer side. Now, if I extend the wall this way, if I extend that floor this way, it should work fine. If I come this way, I got to be a little careful because I'm outside the wall. It gets a little confusing there, so you have to pay attention to what wall plane you're marking. So I'm going to use this wall here, and I'm going to simply extend that height through. Do a little note there, but I'm going to take this all the way to the back corner, all the way to that point there. And that represents the inside of the loft, floor at least. And we really don't see anything below that. We see some stuff above, or we see some stuff on this level, but we don't need that anymore. Now, once we get to that corner, what we've drawn now is this line right here, and it goes to that corner. We'll finish out this little piece when we come back, as well as some stair stuff and other things. But let's go ahead and bring our floor all the way across and stop it where the end of the railing is. So we're going to go ahead and extend this. Oh, looks like our fireplace, our chimney's in the way. I'm going to go light through that so I can keep that in place. Okay, so coming back here and keeping to the outside of the wall, which is adequate for what we're doing, we're going to circle around this way, turn the corner at the column, extend it back, and where this line meets this line, that completes the floor. And it's kind of just barely hiding behind that corner of the chimney. It's what happens sometimes. But we've marked it, we know where it is, and we can come back to it. So I'm going to stop the video at this point. We'll come back together and finish out what's required for the other detail in this last section. So I'll see you soon. Thank you, and we'll see you then.